Story 1. My ex just stopped contacting my kids about a month after moving out. I have them 5 days a week, and she was going to take them for a full weekend. They were excited, and I was excited for them. Friday afternoon, they're all packed and waiting. Finally, we eat dinner and get in pajamas, and nobody is answering the phone. I call my mother-in-law and some friends, but nobody knows anything. I get the kids calmed down, and we watch a movie until they go to sleep. As soon as the last one was down, I went to the garage and cried like a baby. I had never seen them so crushed, and it broke me. It became one of those transitional moments in my life I always remember when I make promises to my children. I will never, ever leave them in a situation like that. Story 2. A woman I once loved recently posted a picture of her with her newborn baby. She looked so happy. I would give anything to be the boyfriend who took a picture like that. Not even necessarily with her. Just to have that kind of happiness and connection and love with someone. To be part of the reason she smiles like that. It does not even have to be that same woman. I have been spending the last year or so trying to accept that that feeling is something I will never get to enjoy. Not everyone gets what they want from life, and I guess I am just one of the unlucky ones. The worst part is that I cannot even muster up a full breakdown. Just a stray tear here and there when I think about it. Story 3. My son's classmate committed suicide. They were quite close in grade school but kind of drifted apart as they got older. We all attended a memorial for him, and they played a slideshow of his life. I saw a picture of him and my son on a hayride when they were 7. I cried more than at my own mother's funeral. I'm even welling up while writing this. Story 4. When I reminisced on the very beginning of my teenage years, I remember my dad sitting on the edge of my bed to talk to me as he did when I was a child before bed. Entering the years of teenagehood, I told him to leave and that I wasn't a kid anymore, and he had this hurt expression and left. I randomly remembered it and shed a little tear. I'm no longer a little child or a teenager, and my father is an old man. I'd trade anything to go back. Story 5. Kid on a youth football team I coach, 99% sure dad is not around, told me if he makes it to college or the professionals, he'll tell everyone I was his best coach. Thank God it was the end of practice and I was wearing sunglasses. Had to take a walk after that. Story 6. I've been so fragile and have been crying to a lot of shows lately. But the latest I can think of is when I finished the anime Grandpa and Grandma Turn Young Again. I think I also teared up a bit rewatching Re:Zero recently. Story 7. End of August, I was dreaming, and I finally held my dog again. He has been dead for 2 years. I got him from my grandmother when I was 10, when he was only 6 weeks old. He lived until he was 18. He was the last thing we still had left from my grandmother since she passed away in 2017. I was crying and weeping his name in my dream. I woke up crying with soaked pillows, and my girlfriend had to calm me down. Story 8. Listening to Charleston Girl Chorus. All I know is that when I am good and sober, I am leaving West Virginia for a while. Don't know why, but every time I cross that river, Lord, there's something tears me up, makes me wild. I'm not good and sober. I'm not crossing that bridge out of West Virginia, maybe not ever. And it scares me a little sometimes. Story 9. A few weeks ago, I bought fresh salmon for the first time, and it turned out so good it made me cry a little bit. It sounds silly, but I rarely have the drive to wake up early, buy fresh groceries, and cook them. I'm not very confident in my cooking skills either because my mom used to constantly criticize me. The fact that I actually cooked the salmon well was very uplifting for me. I want to cook again and experience that feeling again, but life often gets in the way. Story 10. Remembering the pain of the brutal sunburn my stepmother forced me to endure when I was 3. Fortunately, my grandmother took me to my pediatrician and I got admitted to the burn ward, but I lost most of my skin and now have phantom pain from time to time. Story 11. When my best friend died recently, I couldn't attend her funeral. She was in the United States and I'm in Australia. I knew her for 17 years, and there was seriously nothing she didn't know about me, yet she loved me all the same. I know this because she actually told me during a video chat. Story 12. At the end of a tough half marathon, I thought of my father, who died 2.5 years ago. I didn't have the courage to tell him that he could leave in peace on the last evening, but now I had the feeling that he was helping me. I finished the race in tears, but he was by my side. Story 13. My students asked me to play Disney music today, and I decided to hit them with some of the oldies. I didn't anticipate that the 100-acre wood would punch my nostalgia button so hard it would force me to cry within a few seconds of hearing it. Story 14. My dad and his wife were mocking me over the telephone for not calling earlier. I did not want to call because I knew the mocking would come. I was prepared, and still I got so disappointed. Story 15. My lover, when she whispered that her body was mine to do with as I pleased. She said that as I had her heart, I should have the rest of her too. I was choked and in tears, overcome by emotion. Story 16. My daughter just moved to her first apartment, and my son is heading to the army. It's such a cliche, but it hit me hard that the days were often long and exasperating, but the years are so short. I remember taking a spur-of-the-moment hot and humid July Wednesday off when they were 10 and 7. We went to the beach and then out to dinner, nothing fancy. It was totally worth all the annoying comments from coworkers. Story 17. Like just tear up a little? Watching my personal hero and one of the only people I admire, as the younger generation says, win again after over 1,000 days of not winning due to multiple career-ending injuries and surgeries to fix them. Actual proper cry. Probably being orphaned 6 years ago. Story 18. Forrest Gump. When Jenny ran across the pond and Forrest says, "Jenny," right into the microphone and starts running through the crowd. They were like peas and carrots again. Story 19. My pregnant ex-fiancée destroyed, sold, and took my belongings in the house we were evicted from, accessed my Samsung account, changed all the passcodes, started a backup, then put it in airplane mode with Wi-Fi and location off and reported it lost or stolen in the middle of a backup. I've had no contact with anyone I know, and I'm isolated with just some clothes. She humiliated me as I walked away from the house, so much so that a neighbor called a crisis officer to check on me. All because she was upset when I told her I think it's inappropriate to meet up with this new friend without clear communication, or text, or deleting things from her phone. So during her outburst, she started hitting her stomach. I freaked out and called an ambulance. Now over nothing? Story 20. I shed a single tear for this silly thing, but I am about to work with a different team. We went through so many hiccups trying to get everything right, and they are good people. My hope was that at my departure, things would be better. And then the meeting came with the statistics. We finally made it. I'm relieved we made it. I'm happy I completed my mission. Cried waterworks. Last month my grandmother passed and the crematorium thing. Pictures of her that I never saw before. That got to me. Story 21. My dad's funeral was in February of this year. His favorite song was Forever Young by Rod Stewart. I was holding it together pretty well until they played that song. Story 22. A week ago, I recently managed to move country and far away from a not-so-favorable situation I've spent my life in. I thought I had everything under control, but it turns out I was just lying to myself. When confronted with the truth, I had the biggest breakdown I've ever had in front of someone. I feel incredibly inadequate, but I'm still fighting, and I know there's an end in sight. Story 23. Canadian touring Japan currently. Yesterday at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, while walking out of the exhibit, my daughters, 13, 9, were both handed an origami crane by one of the museum staff. It really touched me after seeing the displays of horror, the resilience of the people after the bombing, and the pursuit of peace. I instantly welled up. Story 24. An important friend of mine ghosted me and acted very distant to me after I visited her. I felt sad and anxious, and it was all too much for me. I wanted contact again, but she felt offended when I spoke about my feelings. She said she isn't mad anymore, but we are drifting apart since. Story 25. I frequently shed tears when thinking about my kids. If I'm at work and I catch an image of one of them on my iPhone, as a baby or toddler, I can well up fairly easily at the sheer innocence and cuteness of their faces. Story 26. My ex and I had a dog. When she and I separated in 2016, she kept the dog. As much as I would have loved to have taken her with me, I couldn't. But I knew she would be well taken care of by my ex. In February of this year, my ex sent me a message telling me that Bella had developed cancer 6 months ago and that she had passed away. Even though I hadn't seen her in 8 years, I cried. Story 27. 3 years ago, my aunt's husband died, and I was immensely sleep-deprived due to arranging a festival with 3 other people. I cried in the church. Before that, I hadn't cried since 2013 because my cat died. Story 28. A year and a half ago, I realized my girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend, cheated on me. I didn't cry when I found out, and we broke up. About a month later, after a hike at the top of the mountain, for some reason I just broke down and silently cried for about 5 minutes. Story 29. My wife cheated on me with a junior colleague, and I forgave her and took her to therapy sessions. But she couldn't accept her mistakes, so she told her parents that I'm suspecting her and torturing her. She took my kids, and I have not seen them for a month. Story 30. I've lost 3 cats this year, and another is elderly and sick. I randomly remembered one of them and could not stop crying. She would always want to be held, even though her claws were sharp and she hated the trimmer. I held her for hours and hours anyway, but I should have held her more. Story 31. The company of friends, 2 guys, including me, and 2 girls, got destroyed by my actions. After I realized how bad my actions were and the circumstances it led to, it devastated me. I just felt empty. I was sitting in a car, typing the last messages for the 2 girls, and while typing them, I cried harder than I ever had in my entire life. The next day, I even skipped work and stayed at home, crying intensely throughout the day. I never cried harder in my life. Story 32. Some commercial for some medicine in which there is a family with concerned parents, and the little girl is dressed up as and pretending to be Sherlock Holmes, and the family dog is Watson. I'm middle-aged, single, live alone, with no dog and no child. It made me even sadder and even more lonely. Story 33. Girlfriend and I are going through a lot. I finally opened up to her last night about why I show surface-level love and why I don't let her in. While growing up, if I cried or showed emotion or sadness, my dad would scream at me and call me derogatory names. This same man invaded my privacy by reading love letters I had hidden. To give you an idea of how unreasonable my father was, the letters were from a very real girl. The last girl I dated broke my heart. All my gestures of love did nothing. She promised me she loved me and that she'd be there. Instead, she lied, left me alone, and didn't care about any of it. She moved on with no explanation. Due to my experiences with women and my love meaning nothing to the woman before me, I shut everything else out. I'm safer on my own. People hurt me when I let myself be vulnerable. And last night, I let it all out and sobbed in my girlfriend's arms. Story 34. Last time I really cried, I was in the hospital being told I likely have lymphoma. All I could think about was how devastating it would be for my girlfriend. Then the oncologist showed up and said those doctors had no idea what they were talking about, and it turned out I had a very bad infection. The infection could have killed me as well, but what a roller coaster those 2 months were. Story 35. I have been watching Dragon Ball Z. The episode where Vegeta sacrifices himself when he was saying his goodbyes to Trunks, that's what got me right in the feels. Story 36. My abusive ex put a hole in my wall. We separated 2 weeks ago while she does therapy. She gave me one of the 3 dogs, the one she didn't like, and took her other 2 dogs. I made the mistake of going to get dinner with her last night, and it went pretty much as expected. Constant criticisms and red flags. I got home, took a shower, and went to do a little shuffle step to get back to the bed. I realized I was doing that so I didn't accidentally kick one of the dogs. It sank in at that moment that she wasn't here, and I cried for the rest of the night. Story 37. I've been away from my kids for almost 2 months, for the first time since they were born, aged 5 and 8. I was on the phone with my eldest daughter and told her to bring her sister. She apparently went to the room and told her that Daddy is here, and my youngest ran out full of energy, thinking that I was at the house in person. She saw me on the phone and burst out crying. I immediately started tearing up. Story 38. 6 years ago, I was sick from asthma medications and hadn't slept in probably 4 days. As I sat in the shower, my mother told me my dog wasn't feeling well and couldn't use its feet. It had runny stool the previous night and was dehydrated, so I just bawled my eyes out. Story 39. I've been doing a lot of 12-hour night shifts away from home, haven't been able to do any of my normal hobbies, and don't have any friends yet in the new town we've lived in for 1.5 years. Feeling overwhelmed and just had a good cry during work the other night. No one else around, so didn't feel guilty crying. Story 40. 2 weeks ago, we had to put down our 13-year-old Labrador as her health was going downhill rapidly. She wasn't just a good dog. She was the best dog. I cried like a baby and I still miss her. Story 41. My ex-fiancée and I hung out one time and we were drinking. A couple of weeks before this, I had gotten out of a serious relationship with a different girl. This ex had cheated on me before, and being heartbroken and wanting a rebound, I was hoping to get her to cheat with me. After a couple of drinks, she finds out and tells me, I can't do that to him. Being cheated on by this girl in the past and seeing her love someone who wasn't me and stay loyal made me angry and depressed, and it changed my mind about any scandalous activity.